Take Off Your Clothes. A review of The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Pauline Kael. Going in to see Philip Kaufman's The Unbearable Lightness of Being, I didn't remember anything of the Milan Kundera novel. But as the movie started, I knew just what was coming next, and I loved seeing it happen. It was like a dream that you long to return to, and lo, there it is. I think I know why the novel, with all its flashing wit, evaporated. The characters were counters to demonstrate a theory that wasn't demonstrated, convincingly, that is. And so neither the characters nor the ideas sank in very deep. The charm and limitation of the novel was its continental dandyism. Kundera was more cultivated, more elegantly European than a great writer needs to be. He was too conscious of his themes, his motifs, his paradoxes. He was a rational spokesman for playfulness. There's something the matter with that. It's playfulness as a literary method. He also sees it as a tradition. But while watching the movie, I began to feel more affection for the novel. Kaufman cuts down on the pastry pensée, and the movie has some of his adventurous spirit. It's a prankish sex comedy, and treats modern political events with a delicate, yet almost sly, sense of tragedy. It's touching in sophisticated ways that you don't expect from an American director. The movie begins in 1968, during the Prague Spring, the culmination of the period of freedom of expression and artistic flowering known as Socialism with a Human Face, which ended when the Soviet tanks rumbled into the city on August 21st. The key word in the title is lightness. It retains some of its happy, buoyant associations, but it also refers to being cut off from your history, your culture, your memory. To simplify, unbearable lightness refers to our recognizing that we go through life only once. It's like going on stage unrehearsed. And more specifically, it's the suspended state of a person in an occupied country, especially if the person, like Thomas, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, is part of an advanced society under the domination of a backward society. It's also the floating state of an exile. Thomas, a hedonist, a womanizer, and an eminent young brain surgeon, is perhaps at his lightest when he's barred from the practice of medicine and works as a window washer. He enjoys it, and it gives him a chance to practice his specialty, if the woman whose windows he washes invites him in. Thomas, a tall, boyish satyr with thick, curly, dark hair that stands up a full 3 inches, looks at women from under bushy eyebrows and smiles crookedly, seductively. Day-Lewis has acquired a faint Czech accent, and he hits funny, voluptuous low notes when he says abruptly, "Take off your clothes," adding, when persuasion is necessary, "Don't worry, I'm a doctor." Thomas is an ironic lech. He stays clear of love and its entanglements, never spending a whole night with a woman, not even with his longtime sex partner Sabina, played by Alina Olin, a painter. She's as independent as he is. That's the basis of their friendship. But when Teresa, played by Juliette Binoche, a childlike barmaid who he meets when he's sent to perform an operation at a spa in a small town, follows him to Prague, and comes to his flat, he takes her in. Teresa knows nothing of his non-involvement policy. She holds tight to his hand while she sleeps, and in spite of himself, he loves being bounded to her. He admires the pictures she takes. He asks Sabina to help her get a job in photography, and with that help, Teresa's work begins to appear in magazines. Teresa and Thomas are married, and he buys her a puppy. They name it Karenin. She was carrying Anna Karenina when they first met. But as philandering goes on, and she suffers horribly from jealousy, she dreams about having to watch him in bed with Sabina. Teresa doesn't know real happiness until the arrival of the Soviet tanks. Rushing around taking pictures and pressing rolls of film into the hands of foreign journalists to publish out of the country, she experiences the euphoria of being part of the whole nation in actively hating the Russians. Thomas, meanwhile, dashes around, pulling her back from danger, and they join in the anti-Soviet demonstrations. Through masterly trompe-l'oeil techniques, shots of the actors have been inserted in documentary footage of the crowds defying the soldiers. When the excitement dies down, Teresa persuades Thomas to accept an offer he has had from a hospital in Geneva, and they join the vast exodus from Czechoslovakia. Sabina has left ahead of them. In Geneva, Teresa shows some of her best photographs of the invasion to an illustrated magazine, but the Russian crackdown is already old news to the editors. A woman staff photographer, trying to be helpful, suggests that she try fashion photography, and she offers to introduce her to the editor in charge of the garden section, who might need some photographs of cactuses. When Teresa objects, saying, "I'd rather be a waitress or stay at home," the helpful Pinhead says, "But will you be fulfilled sitting at home?" In the film's centerpiece, Teresa, who has fantasies of accompanying Thomas to his assignations, decides to try her hand at nudes, and gets Sabina to pose for her. After Teresa completes the long session, Sabina picks up the camera, says, "Take off your clothes," and, when the half-undressed Teresa tries to hide, chases her with the camera, and another session begins. When it's over, these two women, who represent the poles of Thomas's life, Teresa, weight, lives for him; Sabina, lightness, has to be her own woman, stay stretched out by the fire, quiet, then laughing. The sequence has an erotic formality. It's ridiculously, beautifully resonant. You feel you're watching a classic pas de deux. At intervals throughout the movie, a scene will have a mysterious seed of comedy. An example: Thomas pauses to watch a group of elderly men in the swimming pool at the spa. They surround a floating chessboard, on which two of them are having a match. I can't explain exactly what gives this scene its lovely estrangement, but I know that of Milos Forman, who was a student of Kundera's at the Prague Film School, where Kundera taught literature, had made the movie, the scene would be folk humor, and it wouldn't have the slight distancing it has here, the beatitude of the image of the old men at their games, their bodies in the pool seen as an ideal. The cinematography is by Sven Nykvist. Other examples: the scene in bed, when Teresa sniffs Thomas's hair, and, smelling another woman, whimpers, and the scenes of Sabina in her black net bra and panties, with a black bowler hat on her head, a hat that is the emblem of her sex play. Almost all of Sabina's scenes are tantalizing. Lena Olin, she was the girl in Ingmar Bergman's After the Rehearsal, seems to incarnate the many meanings tucked away in the phrase, "the unbearable lightness of being," the freedom and elusive sadness. She's glorious. And the movie has scenes that may not stir a reaction until a few hours or a few days after you've seen it, when you suddenly remember the deft use of an old movie device, the clinking of glasses on a tray as the first hint of the tanks in the street, or perhaps the pinkness of a pink piglet named Mephisto that a smiling, congenial farmer, played by Pavel Ludovsky, carries around on his visit to Prague. With its long snout and big ears, the pretty little creature suggests a toy elephant. Or perhaps you think back on Franz, played by Derek de Lint, the professor whom Sabina takes for a lover in Geneva. His eyes shine with the bright blue virtue. He looks as if he had never known a hangover. He is so straightforward and good that she has to escape him. His goodness is too heavy for her. And late in the film, it runs a short 2 hours and 53 minutes. There's a close-up of Karenin, showing just one blurry eye, that may remind some moviegoers of the shot of the hare in Renoir's The Rules of the Game. But it's the way the variations of jealousy and erotic attraction are played out by the three principal actors, an Englishman, a Swedish woman, and a French woman, all playing Czechs, that give the movie its wonderfully unresolved texture. The main difference between the movie and the novel is that Day-Lewis is about 10 years younger than Kundera's 40-year-old hero, and so the whole spirit of the film has become younger and less defeated. Phil Kaufman has an exuberant American temperament. He has never let go of the best of the late 60s and early 70s. The sex scenes are rambunctious, with a legs-flying youthfulness. And when Sabina tells Thomas that Franz is the best man she has ever met, only he doesn't like her the hat, and she puts it on, and she and Thomas whirl in an embrace, the moment has an Ernst Lubitsch giddiness. The material is all there in the book, but Kaufman has instinctively loosened it. If he hadn't, he'd have come out with only a literary adaptation instead of this movie, which is his as much as Kundera's, perhaps more his. And so it may delight the one-time film school professor. The script, by Jean-Claude Carrien and Kaufman, is probably too faithful to the book in retaining some gimmickry about the number 6. And after Teresa goes back to Prague, to the old flat, and Thomas follows, and has his passport confiscated, there are a few late plot developments that aren't quite prepared for. One of them involves Erland Josephson as a barroom janitor who was formerly the Czech ambassador in Vienna. And I'm not sure that the conception of the gamine Teresa as photographic artist is much more than a literary conceit. But the young Rianche gives the role a sweet gaucheness and then a red-cheeked desperation, the push and pathos of a Clara Bow or a young Susan Hayward. She verges on peasant Madonna darlingness, but that's what the conception requires. Teresa is a waifish little man-trap. She has the appeal of teenage, sexy petiteness. That's what gets to Day-Lewis's Thomas. She has a built-in pornography. In the novel, the authorial voice leads us along, and the main characters have little depth. Only Lena Olin is fully able to compensate for this. But Day-Lewis endows Thomas with a sneaky wit. This lusty Thomas, who looks Central European, is a cut-up who draws you into his flirtations. Day-Lewis is a vocal trickster. He manipulates his Czech accent to throw you curves. A muscular toothpick with a long, skinny face and that cushion of hair, he's playing something new in movie heroes, a harlequin intellectual. And when Thomas is a pleasure-seeker without passport, working on a farm, Teresa, who's backward like the police state, has him where she wants him. Janet Malcolm has pointed out that the name Teresa echoes the Czech concentration camp Terezin. But there's also a strong element of conventionality in Kundera's structure, and you can interpret Thomas's commitment to Teresa as his redemption, his gaining the weight that saves him from the unbearable lightness of being. Kundera, the spokesman for playfulness, is himself divided, a partisan as well as a dandy. He toys with the idea of life as a concentration camp. The novel feels the pull of gravity, and this weakens the film's ending. Yet the film's spirit carries through. Kundera has often spoken of Lawrence Stern, the author of Tristram Shandy, as one of his idols. I didn't catch that when I read Unbearable Lightness, but there are glimmers of it in Day-Lewis's performance, and in Phil Kaufman's confident waywardness. Kaufman has made movies that should have been hits, the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and in 1983, The Right Stuff. This time, he has made a movie that probably doesn't stand much of a chance of reaching a wide audience, but it puts him in a different class as an artist. It also puts him and his backer, Saul Zaentz, at the top of the heap for courage. February 8, 1988. Thank you for listening.